Hey everybody, today we're doing just a short presentation on how to do and use a reverse outline. And so the idea behind this is really looking at what you have already done or somebody else's work and then stealing that skeleton to really develop your own writing. So let's start with, what is a reverse outline or what is reverse outlining? So it's a way of reading and analyzing complex information to help you identify structure, revise your own work, or, if you're doing it with somebody else's work, it can be a way of outlining something that you like in order to inform how you want to be able to write. I've broken this up into a few different steps that you can take to really build this into a process that is utilizable. Step one is actually just a summary statement. So you're looking at the entirety of the piece and you're asking, what is the main point or argument about this piece? And you want to write that down in 1 to 2 sentences. And then you want to ask, what is the purpose and what is the intended audience? And you can write this in another 2 to 4 sentences. The idea here is that you're looking at the broad point of whatever piece you are looking at, whether it's a scientific paper, like what's their main argument, or if it's a piece of literature and you're asking, what's the major theme here? The idea is that you want to be able to distill it down. And if it's your writing and you find that you can't distill it down to a main point or argument, then that's one place where you can, realize that maybe you need to be a little bit more clear. Maybe you need to work on that specific argument. So step 2 is actually doing this exact same thing, only you're doing it for the main point of each paragraph. This should be quick. It should be succinct, right? Ideally, you can do this in a couple of words. It could be as simple as just rewriting your topic sentence if you have really strong and clear topic sentences. But the idea here is that you only want one major point or one major takeaway per paragraph. So if you are noticing that in your own writing you have multiple points per paragraph, then that's indicative of maybe you need to split your paragraphs there. If you're doing this with somebody else's work, this can be a really useful reference where you're like, I know that I read this piece of information. Where was it in this paper? You can go back through and instead of having to reskim or reread the whole paper, you can just look at the notes that you've taken where you distilled these paragraphs down to a single point. Now, step 3, we're getting a little trickier. We're getting a little more in depth, right? So now you're looking at how each paragraph advances the main argument that you wrote at the top. Remember, you have that summary statement of the main argument of the paper. Now you're looking at, okay, how does this paragraph help me prove that point if it's your own writing? Or how does this paragraph advance this other person's argument if you're using this to look at somebody else's work? Now, this is really useful for analyzing your own writing because the idea here is if you have a paragraph that doesn't advance your argument, then why is it there, right? That's the point where you need to be looking at how can I make this paragraph better? How can I make it better serve my argument? Or does it even need to be in this piece at all? So step 4 is looking still in depth at these paragraphs and asking how does this paragraph relate to the previous paragraph? This is super useful when you're looking at overall structure, and especially if you're looking at it in your own work or if you're interested in how somebody else is structuring their work. This is good for, am I transitioning well? It's good for building out your introductions, right? And making sure that you funnel from your really broad topics down to your narrower topics or your conclusion where you're doing kind of the inverse. And the idea here is that you want to make sure that your paragraphs flow logically. And looking at the relationships between your paragraphs is a really good way to do that. So now that we've gone in depth on all of our paragraphs throughout our piece, the final step is taking a step back and interrogating the entire outline. So you're looking at, if it's somebody else's work, how does what they have done fit in with my research? Can I use the skeleton that they have built with my own writing? And this is, looking at what they have done and generalizing it to a formula that you can then use when you write your piece. If you're doing it on your own work for self-reflection, you can ask questions like, do multiple paragraphs relate the same idea? Do some paragraphs have multiple main points? Does the order of these paragraphs make sense? And the idea behind that is that you can identify problem areas in your writing where maybe you have multiple major themes crammed into one paragraph. And you're like, okay, I need to go back. I need to rework this. What's my main point here? And this is super useful because, it's at the end, you have this great piece that you can now use as either a formula or a way of moving forward. So this is a really great way to help you and the people that come to you for help organize your thoughts. It has a ton of different uses outside even the ones that I talked about here. And these specific resources are a good place to go to look into all the different ways that you can like physically do this on the paper, as well as all the different applications that a reverse outline has. So if you have any further questions, these are a great place to go to answer them. And I hope that this has been a useful presentation. Good luck.